All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday, September 4th. We are just mere days away from Texas A&M's second game of the season against McNeese State, trying to bounce back against Notre Dame. Somewhat of an abridged show today, just hitting on a few topics. We'll talk a little Aggie soccer as they get ready to get going back on Thursday, but we'll talk about really the passing attack for Texas A&M. Also, if you haven't seen this, the COSM LA Kyle Field experience, wild. It was a little too realistic. So we'll take a look at that. But before we get going, please help us grow this channel. Like, subscribe. We have had no comments so far on any of our videos. Be the first to comment. We want this to be a conversation, a community. So right now, I think we're up to 168 subscribers. So far, I think that's the best within the network. We appreciate you guys, although 3/4 of you watching are not subscribed. So change that. Help us grow the channel. The more you help us, the better coverage we can give you for this moving forward. All right, let's talk about the passing attack for Texas A&M. It was not there on Saturday, as we well know. And caveat, hand up, Notre Dame, great secondary, maybe one of the best in the country. But receiving specifically, take Connor Wigman's subpar performance out of it. We kind of knew the receivers coming into this year were going to be a little bit of a question mark for Texas A&M. How much of that was maybe exposed and how much of that is a concern moving forward? That's kind of what we're going to be delving into. I think it's one of these where individually, each of these guys is not a liability on the field. You would rather have them available than not. But you need in the SEC and really college football, if you look at the teams that do really, really well on a consistent basis and sort of that, like they always say in the SEC, it's the trenches and that next level O-line, D-line, which really you can start to tell the breakaway, right? Kind of a secondary thing that's opened up offensively after quarterback is your wide receiving core. If you have, you go down the list from any of the great Alabama teams, LSU, right, with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and those guys. Having that elite wide receiving core not only helps elevate your quarterback, but that's kind of even LSU last year, right? I know defensively it was a mess, but they had it going there. It's just such a factor. So does A&M have that? Not sure we can say that this year for sure, but I guess the bigger question is how close kind of to that level can you get, and how close do they need to get, right? Because with this new offense, it does feel like to me, not just based off your personnel, but off of Colin Klein and what that offense is most inclined to do, you want to be able to run the ball first and foremost. And I do think Texas A&M is set up for success in that regards. But this is my biggest concern, and the thing that I hate having that feeling, watching a team that you need to come through for you on a Saturday, Sunday too, but to a less extent, is there are certain teams that you feel like if they're behind late and they need to go on a run. We saw it with Texas A&M, 2-minute drill. Not to say that, Connor Wigman's not capable. We've seen it, but how is the offense designed? Is the offense designed to score at a quick pace if needed or get chunk plays? We didn't really see that. And I think that's the biggest thing, because if basically the only way you can win is from the lead and holding on, obviously that cuts out a lot of chances for you to win games and come back and battle. Not to say it's not doable, not to say they couldn't have done it Saturday or anything like that. They were behind, right? But if you were behind, Texas A&M was only behind by at most a touchdown, right? Except for the very, very end. If you're behind multiple scores, if Texas A&M gets the ball back down with 6 minutes left, down by 11, how much is that offense going to be able to get going, score by the 3-minute mark with some timeouts? You give it back to them, use the 2-minute warning, and we are going to say 2-minute warning on this channel. The 2-minute warning and some timeouts, get the ball back with another minute 45 with no timeouts and then go score again to take the lead or tie the game. You got to be able to move the ball like in chunks when needed. It's nice to be able to ice out games. If you have the lead, that's great. But I think that's really where it comes in for me. I'm less concerned if Texas A&M only averages 200 yards per game passing or something, or that's just how the offense looks. But in a pinch, can you get there? And now we need to talk about those wide receivers. As we mentioned, look, obviously none of them had a phenomenal day because the whole passing attack didn't. You have 100 yards passing, like by definition, you don't have a 100-yard receiver, right? Unless it's one guy getting all of it, or maybe you have like a bubble screen that goes for like a loss of 2 that opens up some extra opportunities. But let's take a look at the numbers. The best on Saturday, Ja'Day Walker, 6 for 31. Cyrus Allen, 2 for 29. Trey Watson, tight end, 1 for 18. Le'Veon Moss, 2 for 13 out of the backfield. I mean, a receiving option, not necessarily a receiver, of course. Trey Watson, tight end as well. Noah Thomas, 1 for 10. And he was open a lot more than that. But that was it. That was it. So the big question after the game this week, especially next week as the Aggies go to Gainesville to take on Florida, how do these Aggie wide receivers create, well, I'll just say separation. I was trying to think of a synonym there, but that was something Coach Elko talked about after the game is we were not able to create separations with our wide receivers. Notre Dame was running man-to-man, kind of selling out in that regard. And another thing that I asked Coach Elko about is they were not getting any looks, like even in the intermediate passing game. I think I read somewhere that A&M completed no passes that were longer than 15 yards in the air. Like, you want to talk about picking up chunk plays or not being able to do that. There you go. So how do you change that? Mike Elko was kind of very careful about how he answered that question. When I asked him, he understood what I was saying. But that is something that's going to be worth keeping an eye on moving forward. Now, taking a look at the wide receivers, we talked about how Elko mentioned they needed better separation. They weren't getting separation with their wide receivers. Elko was asked Monday about that dynamic, and then this is what he had to say. We'll talk about it when we come back.
When I say that, like that's always that's an across the board problem. Like when you talk about separation, that's not just on the wide receiver. You know, some of it is the routes that we're calling, how we're running them against the leverages that we're seeing, making sure that, you know, we're running the right routes against the right leverages. That's a piece of it. Some of it is just play speed. You know, I think we have to play faster at wide receiver. You know, I certainly looked at times like we were still feeling our way through some of it, and that's something we've got to get cleaned up and fixed. And you know, Terry's a talented kid. We're getting him going to the best of our ability and to the best of his ability. And you know, I've told you he's going to impact the season. And you saw it a little bit in the return game. You saw us trying to get the ball in his hands. We'll continue to do that, but we still have confidence in the guys that are playing at that position. And so it's kind of where we're at.
Did you catch that at the end? Terry Bussey. That's what I was going to say before we went to it. The question was prefaced with Terry Bussey, partially. Terry Bussey trying to work in with the receivers to help that unit if they are struggling, kind of a 2-part question. So that's where Mike Elko went with it. Look, you know, I think Terry Bussey's a work in progress, like a very high-end talent, but you know, he's coming up from playing 2A football at Texas high school football. And that's, you know, all the talent in the world. He's certainly capable, but you know, I mean, you want to talk about adjusting to a new speed of the game. He is definitely doing that. Now, he did it in the recruiting cycle. That's how he got all those 5 stars. You go to the camps, you do well, you play well. That's great. But obviously, it's one thing to do it in a camp situation, practice situation, a whole nother thing to do it in live football, especially against an opponent like Notre Dame. So we'll kind of wait and see on Terry Bussey, but I thought it was interesting trying to take some of the struggles off of the wide receivers, not fully excuse it by any stretch, but to say, hey, when I say, just heard him, when I say we're not getting separation with the wide receivers, there's a lot more that goes into that, right? So we'll see. I mean, I think you need some combination of better offensive line protection, better pocket presence from Connor Wigman, both stepping up in the pocket, not drifting into pressure, setting his feet. You do need better play from the wide receivers. You probably need better run game and then play action to go off of that. So all sorts of things, and better play calling and scheming on the coaching side. So like I said, after the game on Saturday, the mark of a good coach and good coaching staff is not necessarily the baseline of where they're at. It's how they're trending, how they're learning, how they're adapting, their ability to show that they can learn from past mistakes and from past shortcomings. So Texas A&M, I still feel pretty confident they can do that. They've got a lot to work with this season, and their schedule still shapes up very favorably. Maybe LSU is going to be a little trickier than I thought they would be. I was kind of watching the USC game. I was watching to see, okay, is this going to be kind of same story as last year? Great offense, but then they give up like 38, 30, 42, 45 points. That didn't happen against a pretty good USC team. So that has me a little cautious about that game, but it will be at home. Like, we've talked about all year or all summer, all off season. All the tough games are at home. So that helps out Texas A&M. They've got plenty of chances to write the script starting Saturday against McNeese State. Hey, before we get going here to our next segment, just want to give you a friendly reminder, as we said at the beginning of the show, please help us get this show bigger, make it better, and really what is going to help the most in terms of making this show able to provide the best content moving forward. The bigger we can get it, viewership, subscribers, just overall presence, that is going to help us get out to more events, especially when we talk about traveling on the road. Right now, I don't know that there's any plans for me to do that, either with this show or with my day job. So if you help us out, help us grow the show to where it's sustainable and we can, bring on, it just builds on itself, right? You get sponsorships, you start to, be able to go out on these games. It's going to happen next Saturday where we just watch the Florida game. We talk about it, but going forward, I want to be at these things, right? Not just for me and my personal ego or, selfishness, right? Like I want to be able to deliver the on-field product to you guys because you guys deserve it, right? Like this is what you come to this show for, is not just discussion on Texas A&M. We're like I said, we didn't do it this past week because it was a late game and I was just feeling terrible from a health standpoint, but we're going to have highlights. Just like if you go back and watch our A&M volleyball recap from the other day, we showed you how the game went. We talked about it. We talked about, the preface of the game. We heard from the coach. That's what we want to do for kind of every sport on campus as much as we can. So help the show, subscribe, like, share, tell a friend, ring the bell, and check out our other videos. A lot of people maybe come in for one big video, but check us out. If you want to check out every day, just kind of peek into the show, see what you like. I encourage you to come back at least for all of our shows and at least skim through it, see what topics interest you. And listen, like I said, comment. Let's start a discussion, right? Let's make this a community where we can come together and talk about these things, whether you're an A&M fan or not, to be honest. Let's engage with the outside world. So do all those things. Help us out. We'd really appreciate it. Still looking for that first comment. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to be the first comment on All in Aggies. Let's get it going. I know it's like that thing where, any questions, no one asks a question. Then that first person does, the dam breaks. Let's go. Let's get it going and make this the best show we can moving forward. All right. Just real quick. Next little thing we're going to talk about. If you've seen this video going around online, this is crazy. This is at COSM LA. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I guess I looked into it a little bit. It's apparently, I think they're marketing it as like the Sphere, but in LA instead of Vegas. And it was trippy to say the least. I will present you this and then we'll talk about it and we'll kind of talk over it. I mean, okay, so I don't know. I don't think my mic's muted, so I can talk over the. Well, I mean, look at this. This is incredible. I mean, okay, I'm gonna do this a couple times. So I thought this was Kyle Field, but then I'm like, I don't remember those steps being there. I don't remember any of that stuff. And turns out it's just this massive projection there. If you're in LA and you need a place to watch Texas A&M home games, I guess you got to go there, right? I am going to try to see if I can do a story off of that game, figure out how, like, where they had the camera set up, how that all works, kind of get the behind the scenes on the College Station end. I think that would be fascinating because, I mean, that was like you were sitting right there. Like I said, I was like, I don't remember the design of the layout looking like that, the layout of the stadium looking like that. So I don't know, just something cool floating around. Just wanted to share that was fun. And now we will move on. We'll wrap it up today. Like I said, a little earlier show today than normal. Talk some Texas A&M soccer. They are playing at TCU on Thursday, and then I believe they play Sunday. But listen, before we get to it, let's just tell you where they're at in the season. They are coming off a 1-0 loss this past Friday night against Baylor, Battle of the Brazos, 1-0, a late goal. You'll see it in this clip we're about to share from G. Guerreri, the head coach. 2-0 on the year, 5-0 over Lamar, 3-2 loss to Denver. Beat Fairfield 3-0. You lose to Baylor 1-0. You play at home against TCU on Thursday, and then home against Louisiana Tech on Sunday. That's at 6 p.m. So as we go to this, the preface for this question to G. Guerreri, last year, especially during their non-conference as well, and conference for that matter, they had a number of games where they, if you're familiar with soccer, it's kind of like the run of play oftentimes does not match up with the results of the game. So if you watch Brazil lose to Ecuador or even tie, you might say, oh, Brazil was the better team, should have won the game. But obviously it doesn't happen a lot in soccer. So they kind of had a little bit of that last year. Like, for example, they played Florida State for I think twice. They played them in the tournament too. And I think they only lost on like a phenomenal goal. And Florida State goes on to win the national championships. They played Florida State in the first game of the year at home. They were like very much in that game. And then a late goal, like some brief moments. Florida State scores, they capitalize. Texas A&M loses when they probably should have at least tied. That dynamic has kind of been playing out for Texas A&M. Now against Baylor, they only had one shot on goal, but as you'll see, the goal they gave up was phenomenal. And just because you're getting shots on goal, you're not getting shots on goal does not mean you're not getting shots. It just means you're not getting them on the frame. So I asked Coach, in the Denver game, 3-2, 3 phenomenal goals from Denver, and they're just like knocking on the door like crazy, and they can only get 2 goals, which that should probably still be enough for you to win, but just kind of falling on bad luck. So between those 2 experiences, especially for the girls who have been on both teams, how do you talk to them about maintaining their confidence, feeling like their record 2-2 right now should be better than it is, and this has been maybe a trend going on for a little while? This is what Coach had to say, with the goal included.
Yeah, I mean, for us to, we're with a 2-2 record that we think could be a lot better at the moment. It's just reminding them who they are, and we've got a confident bunch of players, and a lot of it is just the ideas and showing them. We have a lot of science on our side. We have a lot of video on our side. We have a lot of positive people on our side. We don't beat them up, that's for sure. And if anything, I think our players are oftentimes they're super competitors, and they tend to be pretty hard on themselves. And sometimes, for us, it's just a reminder of reminding them how special they are, how dynamic and how rare they are in the super skills that they have, and what they've been able to do and how they can do it. It's the same if you take out our freshman goalkeeper who was in high school last year at this time, and you put in our goalkeeper who is in the pros right now. It's the same team. It's the exact same. It's the exact same lineup that we had this time to finish our way in the NCAA tournament. So it's just a reminder of, hey, you group of players have done some really special things. So it's just a matter of getting our mojo, getting our timing back.
You saw that goal from Baylor. That was nasty. Listen, Baylor maybe should have won the game too. Anyway, like they weren't playing bad. Look, you got plenty of time to right the ship. It's still a very talented team, as he alluded to. A lot of talent coming back. You are missing Miley Hayes this year, star forward from past few seasons, transfers to USC. Shea O'Rourke came in as a transfer that they were going to be counting on, I think, pretty big time to be able to replace her. She tore her ACL. So that is a struggle that the team is going to have to work through as the course of the year. Obviously, you don't plan for those kind of things, right? So I don't know, just something to monitor moving forward. Let me just make sure Shea O'Rourke is indeed a forward transfer from St. Mary's. So that's what you're looking at there. And St. Mary's High School in upstate New York. So anyways, that's where we're at with Texas A&M soccer. Again, home against TCU on Thursday, Louisiana Tech home on Sunday evening. We'll see how that goes. Tomorrow's show, we'll take one last look at the McNeese State game. We're off Friday. We'll be back Saturday. Game recap, highlights, and the like. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. Tell people about All in Aggies. We've been doing the show for a week. I've been hosting the show by myself. And, it's something that it's taken some getting used to. I'm trying to knock down the all that stuff. It's just, it's hard to talk about this solo and get a feel for it. Like I said, if you hear anyone who hosts a solo radio show, they say you start to feel crazy at a certain point because you're just talking to yourself for 30 minutes, an hour. So starting to get a feel for it. I'd like to think. Let me know your thoughts, any suggestions, comments you have, things that you want to see covered on the show. But listen, we've been doing the show for a week. It has, I'm not going to say exploded just yet, but it certainly took off further than it beat my expectations. For one weekend, we're already close to 170 subscribers. I mean, I'd love to get to 1,000 is 1,000 by the end of the month crazy? I mean, we picked up almost like 200 in a week. You do the math, and if it gets exponentially better, we're going to have some better matchups. So I don't know. Help us out, though. Make it happen. Like, comment, subscribe, tell people about it, share, comment, remix it on TikTok, whatever you want to do. Subscribe to All in Aggies, and we will see you on Thursday.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.